familiar with the term post-colonialism?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
So what is that? Basically, it's like after colonialism, right? And there are many countries around the world which were colonized. Not just our part of the world, that is Indo-Pak, that was colonized by the British, but there were many other, there were French colonies in even Canada. There are other places, the Caribbean, you must be coming across Caribbean literature. They are the colonies, Spanish colonies. So this colonization is something which is, going on in centuries around the world, right? If you look at the title itself, I have written the title as Implonialism. I'm sure that you might not have heard this term before, right? So today, this is a kind of a theorizing that I have done in my book also, and I presented it in some conferences also. So, so Implonialism and the Modern World. The title is Implonialism and the Modern World, Theorizing for Neocolonialism in Kashmir and Settler Colonialism in Palestine, right? So there's a lot in the title itself that I am claiming that it is neocolonialism in Kashmir and settler colonialism in Palestine, right? So can we really support it with our argument, right? So I'm not going to go in a lot of detail because, of course, it is the full book that covers this whole thing, right? Over here in my talk, what my point of is that I would like to discuss and make you understand what is colonialism, what is imperialism, and why this term is colonialism that I'm introducing. All right? All right. Now, if you can look at the extreme left side, this is the book by Theodor Herzl, right? And he was a successful Viennese journalist. He wasn't even like German, but he was a Viennese journalist, and he was a playwright, less successful playwright, and he had no political ambitions. But he writes a book, The Jewish State, or else Israel, and immediately it becomes a success. And it is taken up by the people, the Jews around the world. So he tables this idea out, and the idea is that we Jews, because Jews, as you might not be knowing, that they were persecuted in Europe, right? They were very much persecuted in Europe, and that is why they searched for solutions for themselves, and Herzl came up with the solution that they need to have a homeland of their own. All right? So he gave in his book, he has given two or three options. Like he talked about South American, place, Brazil also, and then he talks about Palestine also. And then he writes there, suppose, the Khalifa gives us Palestine, right? So he writes it very wistfully over there. Anyway, so now this is something which started off. His idea was to establish a new state of Israel, but then where was it established? Where there were people. Already people existing in that land, right? And what did they do with those people? They're still killing them. They're still throwing them away. And there's a big Palestinian diaspora around the world, and just because they were ousted and their land was confiscated. So this land grabbing, which started off with his idea, was phenomenal. the way you have the mob mentality. So once it was accepted by the mobs, it became so rigorous whole process that they ventured into robbing and looting and miming and all these things, and it is going on still. So, and if I look at there's this picture of Palestine on the right side also. Yeah, and this was the actual Palestine. You must be very familiar because it's so much on the social media, right? Now, if you look at the other picture, Inglorious Empire, Shashi Tharoor, his book, 2017 book, Inglorious Empire, right? In that book also, he talks about the colonialism with the British, the colonized, the way the British colonized the Muslims or the people of the subcontinent, not the Muslims, the people of the subcontinent. We know about that, right? Before partition, we were in this subcontinent, and then how we were partitioned, how it was like the colonizer, right? So, if you look at the right side, it says original inhabitant, okay. Interestingly, there are many writers, many historians who tell us that the original inhabitants of Palestine, they were first Jews, then they converted to Christianity, most of them, and then they converted to Islam when Islam came. So their people, and you must be knowing that that is the land of the prophets. So it's a very rich land in terms of understanding, human understanding of humanities and human understanding. And therefore they have got a very strong conviction and very strong hold of, their understanding, their roots, right? So there are many professors, many writers, and that's something right from the horse's mouth. I was lucky enough to go to Columbia University, where it is actually the professors, they are working on this, they're producing books on this subject, that how this whole narrative that Israel is only is a Jewish land is being questioned. Because, fine, you can make your land or you can make your homeland, but not at the heads and the blood of the other people, right? So this is like, the quote from one of the writers: in original inhabitants of this land embracing Judaism, Christianity and Islam in different periods of history, and I can quote you the name of the historian, Shlomo Sand is his name, who's given this. And then the same, and then if, then the same formula can be applied on Palestinians or Kashmiris. In other words, like, okay, see, as you people, I was also I'm a Pakistani, so I also did not have much understanding about what actually is happening in Kashmir or in Palestine. So I wanted to research about that, and that's how I came up to all these answers which I'm presenting here. So meaning thereby, on the one side, Palestinians, they also say that they cannot be colonized. Shashi Tharoor, in his, in his book Inglorious Empire, also argues that we cannot be colonized. We were colonized, but then we regained back our independence, which is in front of us, right? So, what makes us think? Now look at the last quote on the right side. And if any attempts to colonizing are bound to fail, as claimed by Herzl. Herzl ने ये कहा था, if I can switch to some Jew also, Herzl ने ये कहा था कि Jews को कोई colonize नहीं कर सकता, ठीक? उसने भी ये claim दिया था, और शशि थरूर ने भी यही claim दिया था कि उनको हमें colonize करने की कोशिश की, कुछ अर्सा किया, लेकिन फिर नहीं कर सके, right? So my argument is that if any attempts to colonizing are bound to fail, as claimed by Herzl, then what is this isation, which is Israel is practicing vis-a-vis Palestine and India in case of Kashmir, right? So that's the question. And that's the beginning. All right. Let's do a little bit of recapitulation that what is colonialism by definition, right? By definition, colonialism is a policy or practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers and exploiting it economically. So that's something, at least in our context, in Indo-Pak context, we can understand, right? The company, East India Company, which came as a company, how they invaded, right? And then Bahadur Shah Zafar ends up in Rangoon, and he's being presented with the heads of his children, his sons, right? So that's all is in history, right? So we know about British colonialism, which happened here. Of course, other types of colonialisms are around the world. Imperialism. Now, what is imperialism? Imperialism is a policy of extending a country's power and influence through diplomacy and military force. Now, imperialism is something, interestingly, we can see that, look at this. Look at the left side. Colonialism, thriving on the metaphors, educating and civilizing the innumerable millions. White man's burden. Yaad hai na? Yes. Kipling said this, white man's burden. We are here to educate you. Right? And imperialism, every nation, for example, after 2001, what was the major narrative or the dominant narrative in Bush's speeches? Either you are, every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. So imperialism is actually remotely handling the land, the resources of a place. Iraq is an example in front of us. Yemen is an example in front of us. Syria is an example in front of us. All right. So I hope this is like. Now, when these two combine, colonialism, imperialism, we understand that they are now something. We are having a mixture of these two. We have colonialism in some part of the world. We have imperialism around many parts of the world. But then, it also gives rise to despotism or fascism, right? Most of the time we come across this understanding that Modi government is a fascist government, right? And their car sevaks and the different organizations which are on rampant, and they are killing people. And for example, I have narrated it in my book also, one particular instance, and this is all recorded. This is all recorded in written narratives that once a train was going and they were the car sevaks, like for instance, they were running on the platform. They came into the train, and the children, college children, as young as you people, they had to, boys especially, they had to run out of the train, and they were running on the platforms, right? And they were just killing them with their long daggers and all, right? One child, he said that my name is Bhatt, Bhat, which is actually a Kashmiri name, and which also is of it can be Hindu or name, and it can be Muslim name. So he said that was the only, when I told my name as Bhatt, as surname as Bhatt, I was saved. I could save myself, but I was under the impression, and I was really afraid of this thing, that they would say that drop down your pants and they would see me, naked, and they would say that he's a Muslim, right? So these are some of the things. So fascism is like that. You know about Hitler. We all know about Hitler, the way he killed the Jews, right? And despotism is, despots are, one group of people who are ruling with their despotism, and they're they do not listen to any reason. So as the pictures, as you can say, neocolonialism, can you see that the wealth is more, towards the global north of the world, and imperialism has got its tentacles like this octopus, right? Okay. Okay. Now, so my argument is that when we see this recolonialism, ठीक है? आज आपको ये नहीं कहते कि we are here to teach you in that manner, ठीक है? But there is a surge of recolonialism, there is a surge of re-imperialism, there is of course despotism, there is fascism, and when they all together, make, when they are combined together, I suggest this term, Implonialism, and I'll explain this term after this slide. Alright? Are you with me, all of you? I hope so. Okay. Now, there's an interesting thing. This particular picture of Palestine, I'm sure that most of you would be familiar with. The way it has been confiscated, the way the land has been grabbed, the way the land has been land. And okay, for this I can give you one example. And again, this is, I have quoted it here in the book also, and this is again on record. That, for instance, you are two neighbors, yes? And when you look at the Google, when you open Google and you talk about energy efficient irrigation system, you just Google this, right? You will come across Israel's energy efficient irrigation system, right? So, but what is not being told there is that, for example, this is the line. On this side is Israel, and this side is the old Palestinian, some properties left with the people who were there from age old, or their generations have been sitting there on those lands. Now, for instance, your vineyards, their water is being taken by them. Your vineyards, they are dying, but Israel's vineyards are being watered with energy efficient irrigation system, right? So what is this? What name can we give this? You say that you are doing something very good and you are using energy efficient irrigation system, but at the cost of what? Sometimes if he's the neighbor, you leave dogs on the whole family. You intimidate them in this manner so that they leave their land and go, right? And there's this movie on Netflix which was a big, hue and cry. I don't know whether you people have watched it or not. It's about Nakba. Have you watched it? That's the girl's name is. I just forgot about it. I'll come to it, but only that movie is going to open your mind what actually happened and what actually is happening, right? Zionists, they were very much against that movie to be released on Netflix. As a side note, I would also like to point out, if you just can look at this. Is there any pointer here? Oh my, I don't want to. Okay. If you look at this picture, which is of Kashmir, right? Okay. Now, this is interesting. You should be knowing at least this much, right? Take it back home. Now, this particular strip is the Azad Jammu and Kashmir, right? And this was actually liberated by Sardar Abdul Qayyum himself, a Kashmiri, right? But it is like there are many allegations which I have talked in several talks. I've written down in several papers also that this allegation is कि पाकिस्तान ने डंडे सोटे दे के भेज दिया था. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं था. पेशावर के बाज़ारों में जब वहाँ के लोगों की लाशें फहराई जाती थी, तो जाहिर है अगर आपके भाई की लाश इस तरह से लेके आ रहे हैं, तो आपका दिल तो खोलेगा, right? They were unrecruited people. They went on their own. However, it was Sardar Abdul Qayyum who managed to take this away, जिसको आज़ाद कश्मीर आज आप कहते हैं, right? However, interestingly, गिलगित बल्तिस्तान का वो एरिया है जिसमें जो उधर का सरदार they called Sardar, he sided with Pakistan himself. Why? Because because the Raja over here in Kashmir, he was taking a lot of time in deciding where to go, whether to go to Pakistan or whether to. So गिलगित बल्तिस्तान का वो एरिया है जो खुद से पाकिस्तान के साथ आया, जब इंडिया उसके ऊपर क्लेम करने की कोशिश करते हैं तो ये बात हिस्टोरिकली रॉन्ग भी है. Why? Because गिलगित बल्तिस्तान area was never a part of real Jammu Kashmir Valley. Well, I would suffice to this and I'll move on. Okay, now these are some pictures which you find on social media. On the right side, the 4 pictures are of Kashmir. Regular pictures. These are regular pictures. And on left side is the Palestine. Right? Okay. Okay. And then the narrative of Modi and Netanyahu. Now it's the next one, who's more of a stauncher Zionist than the previous one even. And this centered one is The Theft of a Nation. This is a book by William Baker. All right. Then you also have this craft. And I don't know whether you know about this thing or not, that the embroidery craft of Kashmir as well as Palestine, it is very rich. Not just embroidery but other crafts also. All right. So can you see that these kind of pictures or these kind of videos are something which are very common. Now, what am I saying? Let's come back to Implonialism. So what is this Implonialism, which has got aspects of colonialism, which has got aspects of imperialism, which has got aspects of this fascism, and likewise dictatorship also. Okay. So, ideological underpinnings of this Implonialism is that it does not care much for any cover statements. Okay, now उसको ये कहना है कि I am here to educate you. ठीक? Nor, either you are with us or without us. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. ऐसा भी नहीं. It is unscrupulous because it is not bothered by any environmental ethical concerns of existing populations of either Kashmir or Palestine or any other population, such population. Uyghurs is one example, Native Americans is another example. So all these are resistance literatures. They are producing resistance literature. So it crosses all limits of consciousness for humanity and human laws, and has unbridled ethnocracy that grossly discriminates against certain of its citizens. आपको ये बात शायद पता नहीं होगी कि ज़ायनिज़्म में भी उन्होंने जिस तरह हिंदुइज़्म में तबकात होते हैं ना, ब्राह्मण, क्षत्रिय, वैश्य, उसी तरह ज़ायनिज़्म में भी they are Ashkenazi Jews and there are other Jews who are like wheat complexion with. They are not encouraged to reproduce even. Only the Ashkenazis, they are encouraged to reproduce. Okay, so that is why it is a creeping apartheid. And the title, the word itself, Implonialism, it has the implications of implosion. I hope you know the term implosion, how it implodes in itself. जैसे आपके वो twin towers थी ना, they imploded in themselves. वो narrative तो एक था कि जी जहाज आके लगे हैं, बाहर से तोड़ा है फलाना, but they imploded inside, right? So it has the implications of Implonialism, that is self-destruction, destructing predictions because they are not environmentally sustainable in the long run. And why do I say that? Because Europeans suppressing the Jewish question in Europe and colonialism in India had to answer for their misdeeds eventually, right? The Nuremberg trials for the perpetrators of Holocaust and British rollback from India can be cited as examples. Okay. So, this Implonialism is actually a protege of colonial imperialism, and we can call it Implonialism. Why? Because it has got absolute power, doing away with any explanatory positions that either colonialism or imperialism have ostensibly maintained in history. उनको वो explanation भी देने की ज़रूरत नहीं. No qualms or trepidations for any accountability of the like of Nuremberg trials. You must have seen so many videos how ruthlessly they are behaving around the neighboring towns of Palestine or Kashmir, because these two come. Exercises indemnity in the vein of witch hunting trials of 1692 Salem, Massachusetts. I don't know whether you have read that play of Arthur Miller, The Crucible. It's a brilliant play, and that was based on these 1692, जिसमें बस सिर्फ इल्ज़ाम लगा के और फांसी लगा दिया. Right? So absolutely no transparency for its ideological state apparatuses and repressive state apparatuses, to use Althusser's terms. I'll move on. A complete disregard to the environmental ethic of the place qualifies, Implonialism की बात कर रहे हैं, qualifies it to be beyond colonialism and imperialism, and makes it a combination of both in the most strategically crafted, heinous and barbaric forms that may be called Implonialism. It calls for a de-Indianization in Kashmir and a de-Zionization in the context of Palestine. De-Zionization, Shlomo Sand की term है, de-Indianization is something that I just made. Okay, so Implonialism versus multicultural, transcultural, cosmopolitan nationalism. अब देखें, हर नेशन में हर तरह के लोग होते हैं मौजूद. ये नहीं है कि ये पाकिस्तान का खिते में सिर्फ एक मुसलमान, खास मुसलमान रह रहे हैं. नहीं, यहाँ हिंदू भी हैं, क्रिश्चियंस भी. इसी तरह आप अमेरिका की केस को देख लें, कितनी मल्टी एथनिसिटीज है. तो उसमें इम्प्लोनियलिज्म वर्सेस मल्टीकल्चरल, ट्रांसकल्चरल और कॉस्मोपॉलिटन नेशनलिज्म इज डिफरेंट, राइट. इम्प्लोनियलिज्म जो है उसमें पैरोकियल नेशनलिज्म आता है. आपने अक्सर कायदे आज़म की ये कोट सुना होगा कि यू आर फ्री टू गो टू योर मॉस्क, यू आर फ्री टू गो टू योर मंदिर्स, यू आर फ्री टू गो टू योर चर्चेस. ऐसा ही है ना, जो हम प्रैक्टिस ना कर रहे हो इतना, लेकिन बात यही है, होनी यही चाहिए, राइट. जैसे हज़रत उमर ने एक बंदे को देखा और वो भीख मांग रहा था और बहुत बूढ़ा था मदीना की गलियों में. तो उन्होंने कहा कि ये क्यों है, ये मतलब ये क्यों भीख मांग रहा है, कौन है ये? उन्होंने कहा जी ये ज्यू है. तो उनका इसका ज़कात मुकर्रर करो, ज़कात मुकर्रर करो भाई इसका. That's how it is. We have to understand this actual spirit, right? So Implonialism is actually wrong, जिसमें सिर्फ वो इसराइलीज जैसे कहते हैं कि यहाँ पे यही होने चाहिए, या कश्मीर में जैसे वो कर रहे हैं कि वहाँ से इंडियंस ला के वो कर रहे हैं और वो कहते हैं वाह खूबसूरत कश्मीरी हमें ख़वातीन मिल जाएंगे. Parochial nationalism versus multicultural multi-ethnic equality-based nationalism. ये दोनों चीज़ों में डिफरेंस है. Hannah Arendt, one of the biggest name in theoretical, वो कहती है a pack of lies are bought easier than truth, so that it is quite a task to bring truth to the surface, and that's something which is happening today. Through this theorizing, I offer an aid for any future research in these or any similar areas. International law should extend and diversify its field to include, if at least it is to be consistent with the idea of democracy and the human rights it proclaims, the worldwide economic and social field beyond the sovereignty of states. ये कौन कह रहा है? जॉक गरेरा. ठीक है, इसको हमने कभी भी नहीं, स्पेक्टर्स ऑफ मार्क्स में वो बोलता है. He was a Marxist also, but this colonial imperialism or Implonialism is more aggressive due to sheer savagery of the attack, shows the moral depravity of the oppressors, and uses a hammer against the fly phenomenon. Thus, the world communities that are being put under erasure may be seen through this lens of post-Implonialism. Right? So I end my talk here. And Implonialism is therefore beyond any imperialisms, colonialisms, fascisms, or despotisms. Right? So I hope it might have made sense. And that's it.
Do we have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Ma'am, we talked about imperialism in the context of Kashmir and Palestine, of how settler colonization is actually happening now. But when we look back in history, even the USA is a settler colonization, and the Red Indians have been imperialized in the same manner that we're talking now. So why didn't you think important that we begin or include that part of the USA imperialization?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. And it when I went to Colombia, these two realms were already there on my plate, and I had studied a lot of Native American. I wanted to include that. But then the thickness of the book, if this is this much, it would have been more. The point is, yes, that is very much there. And that has been gone down into history for the last 400 or 500 years, right? But this Implonialism is happening in this day of connectivity, of social media, of these, internet age. That day, when they did it, it was like nobody came to know about it. But now we have a lot of, and if you look at Native American, that's also something I would encourage, and I encourage my students to take up that area as their research area. And there have been many researches in Pakistan also about that. And Ma'am Zainab and I studied that course together of Native American Indians. And it is amazing, right? So it is there, it is there. It is very much there. And I've quoted, for example, Thomas King, I've quoted him here, occasionally. But we have written papers. Two papers are with you also about Native Americans, and that is in Pakistan Journal of American Studies from Qaeda University. You can read that, right? It is available on our Google Scholar. So that's true. And it's like, talk about Uyghurs these days, talk about Syrians these days, talk about other, it is going on. Somewhere the combination is different. Sometimes it is more imperialistic dominating, sometimes it is more colonizing, sometimes it is fascism, sometimes it is, despotism, but it is a combination of those. And that is why I suggest this term of Implonialism. Right? Yes.
Ma'am, you mentioned that also our topic is about the Indian colonization in Kashmir, but historically हमें ये समझ आ रहा है कि जब ब्रिटिश इधर से जा रहे थे उसने 3 ऑप्शन दिए थे जो आज़ाद स्टेट थे ना, एक कि आप किसी स्टेट के साथ मिल जाए या आप इंडिपेंडेंस ले जाए। तो जो इस टाइम का रिप्रेजेंटेटिव था कश्मीर का हरी सिंह, तो इसने उसको इंडिपेंडेंस लेने दिया, लेकिन बाद में जो ट्राइबल एरिया की तरफ से अटैक हुआ था कश्मीर पे, और इसी आज के उसने ये नहीं कहता, लेकिन कुछ पाकिस्तानी राइटर्स और इंडियन राइटर्स हमारे साथ यही कह रहे थे जो ट्राइबल एरिया थे उसने लूटिंग कर दिए थे कश्मीर से, कुछ गाड़ी आ रही थी तो उस वजह से हमारे साथ ये तो क्वेश्चन ये है कि मैम हरी सिंह ने ये कहा था कि मैं इंडिपेंडेंस लेना चाहता हूँ, तो फिर इधर से अटैक हुआ तो उसने इंडियन से मदद चाहा, और दूसरी ये पॉइंट उधर गलत सामी पाकिस्तान के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कि जो नवाब जूनागढ़ का जो एरिया था उसमें माइनॉरिटी थी मुसलमानों की और कश्मीर में मेजॉरिटी थी, तो हम अगर मेजॉरिटी के बेस पे कश्मीर लेना चाहते थे तो फिर हमने जूनागढ़ क्यों ले लिया, जूनागढ़ को क्यों पाकिस्तान के साथ शामिल कर दिया। तो कश्मीर के मामले में ये तो इसने इंडिया से मदद चाहा, इंडिया आकर उसकी मदद कर दी और उसको डिलिबरेटली उसके स्टेट के मिड ऑफ स्टेट में सोचा, तो उसको हम कॉलोनाइजेशन किसे कहते हैं। और दूसरा क्वेश्चन मेरा ये कि मैं
इसी क्वेश्चन का आंसर इतना लंबा है लेकिन बहरहाल आप पूछ लीजिए।
दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मैम शशि थरूर इन ग्लोरियस एम्पायर और इन एरा ऑफ डार्कनेस में ये कुछ कहा कि हमने कॉलोनाइजेशन को कॉलोनाइजर आए थे और फिर गए और हमने इसको लेकिन इन द कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ पाकिस्तान हमें ये मिल रहा है कि कॉलोनाइजेशन का जो भी चीज़ ब्रिटिश का था हमने कॉपी पेस्ट करके इधर अप्लाई कर दिया, इवन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, एजुकेशन, जुडिशरी, एवरीथिंग में। और इवन द फाउंडर ऑफ पाकिस्तान कायद मोहम्मद जिन्ना ने अपने एक रिप्रेजेंटेटिव बिफोर पार्टीशन अमेरिका सेंड किया था और अमेरिकन से यही कहा था कि हम आपके लिए हमें आप सपोर्ट करें अगेंस्ट ब्रिटिश कॉलोनाइजेशन, हम आपके लिए कैपिटलिज्म के प्रमोशन के लिए इधर काम कर रहे हैं क्योंकि जो कांग्रेस थे उस लिस्ट पे। तो हमने किस तरह कॉलोनाइजेशन को खत्म करते हैं।
अच्छा, आप कह रहे हैं कि आपने पाकिस्तान ने भी यहाँ पे कॉलोनाइज किया, ऐसा?
मैम कॉलोनाइजेशन जो कॉलोनाइजर थे ब्रिटिश वो गए, लेकिन इसके बाद भी हमारे साथ वो पूरा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव।
अच्छा चलिए मैं आगे आ जाऊँ, आपको आवाज़ तो आ जाएगी, राइट? अब आपने दो बातें बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट की हैं, मैं उसको सम अप करूँगी। ये पूरी किताब है इस पर, और अगर आपको शौक़ हो तो आप ज़रूर पढ़ें, बिकॉज इसी पाकिस्तानी माइंडसेट के साथ आई स्टार्टेड ऑफ इनटू दिस रिसर्च। बट देन द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट हिट मी हार्ड was that in May 1947, when even the partition had not taken place, that the army of Patiala, they were already planted in Kashmir. It was with treachery that they confiscated that land. ये मैं इतना ही बता सकती हूँ आपको मैंने हिस्ट्री का एक एक चीज़ लिखी हुई, एक एक चैप्टर लिखा है और एक एक पेपर में लिखा है, राइट? विच इज़ ये जो पेपर मैंने कश्मीर के ऊपर लिखा था, इट इज़ लाइक वाइडली डिसेमिनेटेड, इसको बहुत से उसमें ये जो आप नैरेटिव कह रहे हैं कि हरी सिंह ने वो अपनी मर्जी चाहिए थी, उसने बहुत बेवकूफ़ी की थी। लिसन टू हिज grandson's narrative also, that he took a lot of time in deciding, while Nehru and Gandhi, they had already decided, they were playing with him, right? They were playing with him, so that instrument of accession, वो जो एक जिसको कहते हैं ना कि हमने इल्हाक किया था, कश्मीरियों ने इल्हाक किया था उसके साथ, वो इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ एक्सेशन उसको कहते हैं, उस डॉक्यूमेंट को। दैट इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ एक्सेशन इज nowhere to be found till now. That's not there. Because fake document, उसमें महाजन, MC महाजन, ये सारा कुछ लिखा हुआ है इसमें। MC महाजन ने फेक डॉक्यूमेंट बनवाया और वहाँ पे उसने कहा कि ये तो पहुँच गया हरी सिंह हमसे मदद मांगने, इससे फ़ौरन वो करवाएं। ये सारी ट्रेचरी से, और ये मैं किसकी हिस्ट्री की बात कर रही हूँ? एलिस्टर लैम्ब, इंडिपेंडेंट हिस्टोरियन, विक्टोरिया शॉफील्ड, ब्रिटिश हिस्टोरियन। मैंने पाकिस्तानी हिस्टोरियंस को इसलिए नहीं लिया कि आप ये कहेंगे कि अपने हिस्टोरियंस को ही लेके आ गए हैं, नहीं, इंडिपेंडेंट। हाँ, हिंदू हिस्टोरियंस भी कुछ जो हैं वो कुछ बातें सही कह देते हैं, और कुछ झा जैसे जो हैं हिस्टोरियंस वो बिल्कुल ही उस तरह का नैरेटिव जो हमारे ज़बान ज़दियाँ। और जो दूसरी आपने बात की, अभी आप लोगों के दिमाग में इतना ज़्यादा ये चीज़ एम्बेडेड है कि आपने मेरी बात को सुना ही नहीं था। मैंने आपको ये कहा था कि जो इर्रेगुलर आर्मी थी ना, इर्रेगुलर आर्मी पश्तून्स की ज़्यादातर जो गई थी, जिन्होंने हैवक भी मचाया था। ज़ाहिर इंसान तो दरिंदा बनने में कोई ज़्यादा देर नहीं लगा था, उसमें ज़्यादा रिलीजन का भी काम नहीं होता, टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, राइट? when you have the upper hand, that's how it goes, right? So they might have done that looting or whatever they did. However, जो आज़ाद कश्मीर हुआ है, कश्मीर जो आज़ाद हुआ था, जो छोटा सा स्ट्रिप, वो सरदार अब्दुल कयूम ख़याम ने खुद फौजें लेके आगे चला गया था, उसने वो स्ट्रिप आज़ाद करवा दी थी। उसमें पाकिस्तान ने उसको, क्योंकि एंड दिस इज समथिंग ऑन रिकॉर्ड, एलिस्टर लैम्ब हैज रिटन दैट कायद्स, and Victoria Shoffield has also written that Qaid-e-Azam's stance was very principled stance. He never intervened. हाँ, उन्होंने इतना ज़रूर कहा था शेख अब्दुल्ला को कि तो you are making the biggest blunder of your life, और वो आज तक कश्मीर भूल गए, ठीक है? सो हमें हमारे हकायक सही हैं। और जो दूसरी बात आपने कही है, दूसरी बात क्या कही थी? जो हाँ, एग्जैक्टली, ये बैठे हुए कनाडा में एक प्रोफेसर साहब फैसल देव जी, उसकी किताब का भी मैंने फिर आगे जिक्र करके फिर आगे उसका काउंटर नैरेटिव दिया है। उसने कहा जिस तरह इजराइल बना है उस तरह पाकिस्तान बना है, ठीक है? ये नैरेटिव भी दे रहे हैं। अब इसमें क्या गलती है? इजराइल की स्टेट वहाँ पे पहले से लोग मौजूद थे, ये ऐसा नहीं था कि वो यानी वहाँ पे कोई भी नहीं था। इट वॉज अ टेरा जिसे कहते हैं, टेरा कहते हैं कि बिल्कुल कुछ लोग भी नहीं थे वहाँ। जैसे गोल्डा मेयर ने भी ऑन रिकॉर्ड कहा है, there were no Palestinians, there were nobody there, ठीक है। जबकि यहाँ पे आपके पश्तून हो गए, आपके बलोच हो गए, आपके सिंधी हो गए, आपके पंजाबी हो गए, और पंजाब बाय द वे वाज द लास्ट वन टू अग्री विद कायदे आज़म, ठीक है। सो इन्होंने खुद से यानी ये तो नहीं है कि यहाँ पे कोई इन्वेडर्स आ गए थे, यहाँ इन्वेडर्स नहीं आए थे, यहाँ के खुद लोग थे। हाँ, मुसलमानों ने हिजरत ज़रूर की थी और यहाँ से हिंदुओं ने हिजरत की थी, मगर हिंदू हमसे ज़रा क्योंकि अक्लमंद हैं, और मैं उसकी मेरी लाइक द प्लेस फ्रॉम वेयर आई बिलोंग, ये मैं जिंदा मिसाल हूँ उस जगह की, ठीक है। ये जो नैरेटिव है कि जी हाँ लूट मार दोनों तरफ से हुआ था, ये हमें बिल्कुल मान जाना चाहिए और हम मानते हैं इस बात को कि लूट मार दोनों तरफ से हुआ था। हाउएवर ये उस तरह का नहीं है कि आप किसी पे कौम पे मुसल्लत किए जा रहे हैं, नहीं, आपकी अपनी कौम है, वो है ये कि पश्तून भी है, वो फलान भी है। अब और ये जो मैंने अभी गिलगित बल्तिस्तान के लिए आपको बताया था, वहाँ का सरदार अक्लमंद था, जब उसने हरी सिंह को देखा ना बहुत देर लगा रहे, सो व्हाट डिड ही डू, ही डिक्लेयर्ड फॉर पाकिस्तान। These are the words in verbatim from the Alistair Lamb's book, right? So we actually need to go real deep into it, और हम लोग as qawm, as nation, we don't read. We take into things which are being told to us, which are being drummed into us, right? So it's time as researchers, as independent, understanding, real, फॉर एग्जाम्पल अभी आपको मैं एक और भी मिसाल देती हूँ। 2019 में नौशीन अली है, हबीब यूनिवर्सिटी कराची की, उसकी किताब छपती है और वो कैम्ब्रिज से छपी है वो किताब, मगर उसमें नैरेटिव उसने बिल्कुल डिस्टॉर्ट करके ना गिलगित बल्तिस्तान का जो इंडियन नैरेटिव है उसने उसी को प्रमोट किया, हालांकि हकीकत और हिस्ट्री इससे फ़र्क, ठीक है ना। आप कह रहे हैं ना आपके घर में अगर आग लगी हुई है, ठीक है, और कोई लगा रहा है, तो आपकी अकल क्या कहती है कि यार मैं अपनी को बचा के फिर इसको भी बचाऊं, ये कहता है ना। एग्जैक्टली गिलगित बल्तिस्तान के सरदार ने ये काम किया था, he declared for Pakistan himself, nobody coerced him, nobody forced him, right? and इसी तरह बलोच, इसी तरह वो। अब प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हमारे अंदर डिस्पैरिटी बहुत ज़्यादा क्रिएट की जा रही है और कुछ ऐसे फैक्टर्स हैं भी। So I hope I have answered some part of your question. Yes?
Anyone else?
Farha. Ma'am, Farha is there.
When you talk about Israel, so I think that it is a very politically empowered country. Most countries must run on their politicians and also like some foundations they go to politically empowered international nations, right? So I believe that Israel is very, empowered nation.
No doubt about that. See, the thing is, colonialism ने क्या किया था? आपके ब्रिटिश के क्वीन के जो ताज था उसमें कोहिनूर हीरा कहाँ से लेके गई थी? तो यही चीज है कि वो पावरफुल बनते हैं, किसकी बेस पे बनते हैं? When I used to walk down the corridors, not the corridors, the road of Columbia University, it used to be, heating, वहाँ से हीट आ रही होती थी, बाहर सर्दी है बहुत ज़्यादा, वहाँ से हीट आ रही होती थी और बिल्कुल यानी empty halls and billiard tables and all, and I used to say that यानी किसके सर पे आपने ये काम किया? इसी तरह इसराइल ने।
Yeah, that is what I was getting to, right? Because there was an interview of Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the Prime Minister of Israel, with Jordan Peterson, who is a professor in Canada.
Yeah, I know Jordan Peterson.
Good figure of nowadays. So, he was just lying to his face. I would say.
He was like,
That logic is
मैंने यहाँ कहा है ना, blatant lying है यहाँ पे. They are blatantly lying.
He was saying it was a barren country. It was a barren country.
Exactly.
Nothing
It was barren country.
So, I believe they are backed very powerfully. So, what would be the solution?
बच्चे, solution हमारे पास नहीं है, पाकिस्तानी के पास उस तरह solution नहीं है. Solution जब उनके पास थी उन्होंने उस वक्त इस्तेमाल नहीं की. जब हमारे पास थी सोल्यूशन हमने कर ली और कायदे आज़म ने जब अब आप उनको गलत ब्रैकेट में डाल रहे हैं, बहुत से लोग इस किस्म के हैं जो उनको गलत ब्रैकेट में डाल रहे हैं, लेकिन इस रिसर्च करते वक्त, ये जो किताब मैंने रिसर्च की है, इसको करते वक्त आई केम टू अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि जो पाकिस्तान बन गया है ये हमारे लिए, हमारे बच्चों को पता नहीं है कि कितना बड़ा काम हुआ है। हम लोगों को उसकी कदर भी नहीं है। क्यों? क्योंकि वही काम जो इट इज़ अ बैडली कैप्ड बिजनेस ऑफ द ब्रिटिश एम्पायर इन पैलेस्टाइन, इट इज़ द बैडली कैप्ड बिजनेस ओवर हियर इन कश्मीर। माउंटबेटन ने खास तौर पे हरी सिंह को कहा था और कायद आज़म को कहा था, दोनों आराम से बैठ जाओ, जब तक मैं ना कहूँ तुमने कहीं एक्सेशन नहीं देना, ये कहा था उन्होंने। बट नो, हरी सिंह वेंट विद दैट। और जूनागढ़ की आपने बात की थी किसी ने, हाँ, जूनागढ़ की कॉरफील्ड, अगेन इट इज ऑन रिकॉर्ड, Caulfield gave this suggestion to Mountbatten and he said कि let's leave this because जूनागढ़ मुस्लिम मेजॉरिटी है जिनके ऊपर हिंदू वो है हिंदू मेजॉरिटी है और मुस्लिम रूलर है, और यहाँ पे हिंदू रूलर है और मुस्लिम मेजॉरिटी है, तो ये दोनों आपस में बाद में बार्टर कर लेंगे। नहीं, वहाँ पे इंडिया ने मिलिट्री एक्शन करके जूनागढ़ को काबू में कर लिया था, ठीक है। लेकिन यहाँ पे मिलिट्री एक्शन की इजाजत नहीं मिली थी। यहाँ पे भी इन्होंने मिलिट्री एक्शन किया मगर अगेंस्ट द मुस्लिम्स, राइट। एनीबॉडी एल्स?
One more question.
One last
will be out of time.
Ma'am, if we talk about the current situation of Kashmir in the context of Pakistan, so they don't want to be a part of Pakistan. They want an independent nation. So why aren't they getting an independent nation and they are trapped to be a part of Pakistan?
They are what?
Why they are trapped to be a part of Pakistan?
Why they are? What is the word that you are doing? Saying, beta, मुझे समझ drag to be a part of Pakistan. Okay. Nobody is dragging them to be a part of Pakistan, to be very honest. Now, in this current situation, right? If they find that they are better off with Pakistan, they will come to Pakistan. Otherwise, जो अब narrative बन चुका है, जो lately narrative है, they want to stay independent. And let me tell you, Pakistan does not hold anything against this, except for yes, there's a very strong lobby otherwise saying this thing that they should be a part of Pakistan. They're being dragged, as you say, but that's not the case. Kashmir itself wanted Aracha. Again, this particular option was, again, we don't know history. This particular option was also given to Mountbatten, that Kashmir should remain independent. He said never. It has to go with Pakistan. उसने कहा था पाकिस्तान के साथ जाएगा, इसीलिए उसने हरी सिंह को भी कहा था कि do not do this, but he did exactly that thing. However, उसमें जो माउंटबेटन की अपनी भी बहुत सी वो थी चीज़ें ऐसी, लेकिन उसने खास तौर पे कहा था। आज 2017 में सुबीर कौल की, one of my MPhil scholars, she is doing a research on one of those books and it's an anthology of Subir Kaul. Now he is a Pandit, Kashmiri Pandit. And in his book, in the introduction of his book, you go and read its introduction, you will get to know that he also says that naturally Pakistan had to, Kashmir had to come with Pakistan. Why? There is a big reason. You know, civilizations, हम तो अभी मायोपिक होके देख रहे हैं ना, पाकिस्तान को देख रहे हैं, इंडिया को देख रहे हैं, इसको देख रहे हैं, उसको देख रहे हैं। थोड़ा सा बैक पे चले जाएं, आपके पास मोहनजोदारो है, आपके पास हड़प्पा जो एक बड़ी पुरानी सिविलाइजेशन है, जिसको इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशंस कहते हैं। ये इंडस रिवर एक्चुअली जेहलम रिवर है जो कश्मीर से शुरू होता है, इसका रूट ही जेहलम में वहीं पे है, और वहाँ से ये इसका नेचुरल फ्लो ही इस तरफ है, इसीलिए ये इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन है। ये बहुत पुरानी तहजीब है, बहुत सी पुरानी तहजीबों से, बेबीलोनियन तहजीब से भी पुरानी तहजीब है। सो वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द डेमोग्राफिक सिचुएशन ऑफ दिस ऑल्सो। और इसीलिए जितने बड़े थे उस वक्त, क्यों नहीं माउंटबेटन ने कह दिया कि ठीक है तुम्हारी मर्जी है, तुम इधर चले जाओ उधर चले जाओ। वाई? और आज सुबीर कौल भी ये कह रहा है, ठीक है, वो बात भी कह रहा है जो बीच में जो आप लोगों को पता है, लेकिन वो ऐसा नहीं है। हिस्ट्री के रिकॉर्ड जब आप खोलते हैं, इंटरेस्टिंगली इसमें कोट भी किया हुआ मैंने, ब्रिटिश पार्टीशन रिकॉर्ड्स, I thought that they would be available in Pakistan also. I could download them in Colombia very easily. कश्मीर फाइल्स मैंने निकाली और मैंने उनको डाउनलोड कर लिया। उसमें माउंटबेटन की कहीं वो है, यानी वो वाले हैं ना जो 100 साल के बाद वो ओपन कर देते हैं केसेस, यानी पूरा रिकॉर्ड ओपन कर देते हैं, वो था। आई थॉट कि पाकिस्तान जाऊँगी वहाँ पे मिल जाएंगे, पाकिस्तान में वो डाउनलोड नहीं होते, पाकिस्तान में वो मिलते नहीं। लेकिन मैंने कश्मीर की बहुत सारी फाइल्स, और वो उस वक़्त से हरी सिंह ने क्या कहा है, ये कहाँ है, कुछ भी नहीं है वहाँ पे. ये इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ एक्सेशन, ये एक्सेशन नहीं है. और विलियम बेकर, यू वर रीडिंग इट इन द मॉर्निंग, ये विलियम बेकर की एक छोटी सी मैं कोट आपको देने लगी हूँ, which might be helpful for you to understand. वो कहता है, it's on page number 35, he says, the other Indian nations, Indian states voted to be a part of India, and the people of Kashmir have yet to exercise that prerogative. It's his quote. Kashmir, वो block letter से लिखता है, Kashmir has never been a part of India, thus it is impossible for the Kashmiri people to secede from that which they have never joined. ठीक? And thus the argument that India will disintegrate if it permits Kashmir to escape rings hollow, he says. In point of fact, the Indian state will disintegrate if they continue to attempt to rule their own state, citizens and states with such a prejudiced and corrupt government. Even and also because over there, so-called lower caste and untouchables. Right? So this is just one quote that I just brought. It's an eye-opener. It was an eye-opener for me writing this book, and it was very difficult for me to write because it's a very sad reality, and many persecutions, much oppression which is happening. And sometimes I used to close the flap of my laptop. I had to. I couldn't take it anymore. So it's difficult. It's difficult.